General Han stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, and watched the planet below spin slowly in the darkness of space. The world was called New Meridian by the humans who lived there. It was a small colony, far from the center of human space, and that made it perfect for what he had planned. The war between the Dominion and the Terran Alliance had been going on for 3 years now. It was not a big war. There were no massive battles or burning worlds. It was a cold war, fought with words and threats and small moves on both sides. Han was tired of it. He wanted to force the humans to negotiate, and he knew the best way to do that was to take something they valued. Hostages. Civilian hostages from a small colony would make the humans come to the table and talk. They would have to give the Dominion what it wanted if they ever hoped to see their people again. It was a simple plan, and Han was proud of it. He turned to his second-in-command, a younger officer named A was eager and ambitious, always looking for ways to prove himself. He had volunteered to lead the ground team personally. "Status report," Han said. A's face split into what passed for a smile among their species. His gray skin pulled back to show rows of small, sharp teeth. "The raid was a complete success, General. We caught them during some kind of celebration. There were bright colors everywhere and strange food and music. They did not expect us at all." Casualties. Minimal on our side. A few injuries. The adults fought back harder than we expected, but we managed to secure 47 prisoners before the local security forces could organize a real response. Han nodded. 47 hostages was a good number, enough to matter but not so many that they would be difficult to manage. "Excellent work, Commander. You will be rewarded for this." "Thank you, General." I handed over a data pad. "Here is the full manifest of the prisoners. We are transporting them to the flagship now." Han took the data pad and began to scroll through the information. Each prisoner had been scanned and logged. Their height, weight, age, and biological readings were all recorded in neat rows of data. At first, Han only glanced at the numbers. Then he stopped. He looked more carefully. He felt his throat sacs, the organs his species used to express emotion, begin to tighten and change color. "Commander," he said slowly, "these biological readings, these age markers." "Yes, General. The majority of these prisoners are juveniles." A shifted his weight from one leg to another. "That is correct, General. The celebration we interrupted appeared to be some kind of gathering for young humans. A birthday party, I believe they call it. The adults who were present fought very hard to protect the young ones. It was easier to secure the children and retreat than to continue fighting." Han stared at the data pad. 31 of the 47 prisoners were human children. Their ages ranged from 4 standard years to 12 standard years. Some of them were barely old enough to walk properly. He had sent his soldiers to capture hostages, and they had come back with bobbies. "You raided a party for children," Han said. His voice was flat. "You took human young from their parents." "I took the targets that were available, General. The mission was to secure hostages. I secured hostages." "You secured children." A seemed confused by the General's reaction. "Is there a problem, sir? They are still valuable as leverage, perhaps more valuable. The humans are known to be emotional about their offspring." Han set the data pad down on his command console. His hands were shaking slightly, though he did not know why. He had been a soldier for 40 years. He had fought in dozens of battles. He had ordered the deaths of thousands, but something about this situation made him feel cold inside. "Get me the intelligence division," he said. "I want a full briefing on human behavior regarding their young, everything we have, now." A looked uncertain but did as he was told. He sent the message and then stood waiting, watching his general with growing concern. He did not understand what was happening. They had won. The mission was a success. Why was Han acting like something terrible had happened? The answer came 20 minutes later, when intelligence officer arrived on the command deck. was a strange creature, even by the standards of the Dominion. Its body was covered in patches of skin that could glow with different colors, and it used these lights to communicate emotions that its voice could not express. Right now, those patches were pulsing with a dim, sickly yellow that meant fear. General Hand said, "I came as quickly as I could. I have reviewed the manifest from the raid." And lights flickered to a darker shade. "General, I must ask you a question. How much do you know about human psychology regarding their offspring?" "I know they are protective, as most species are." "No, General," moved closer, its voice dropping to almost a whisper. "You do not understand. What most species feel for their young is instinct. It is biology. It is natural and normal and can be predicted and measured. What humans feel for their children is something else entirely." "Explain." "Humans do not simply protect their young, General. They worship them. They build their entire civilization around them. Their laws, their customs, their very concept of morality is based on the protection of children. When you harm a human adult, you make an enemy. When you harm a human child—" Paused, its lights went completely dark for a moment. "When you harm a human child, you create something that has no name in our language. The closest translation would be a demon made of rage and pain that will never stop, never rest, and never forgive until everything you love has been turned to ash." Han felt his second heart begin to beat. This only happened when his body sensed extreme danger. "You are exaggerating." "I am not, General. I have studied humans for 30 years. I have read their history. I have watched their wars. And I am telling you now with complete certainty that you have made the worst mistake of your life." On the lower decks of the Eternal Conquest, the transport shuttle was docking. Inside were 47 human prisoners. 31 of them were children, scared and confused and crying for their parents. And somewhere in human space, those parents had just received the worst news of their lives. The clock was now ticking. Admiral Wei was asleep when the emergency signal came through. She had been dreaming of her grandmother's garden back on Earth, a peaceful place full of flowers and the smell of rain. The harsh alarm pulled her out of that dream and back into the cold reality of her quarters aboard the TAS Resolute. She was dressed and on the bridge in 4 minutes. Her crew had never seen her move so fast. "Report," she said, taking her command chair. Her communications officer, a young man named Tors, turned to face her. His face was pale. "Admiral, we have received an emergency transmission from New Meridian Colony. Approximately 2 hours ago, Dominion forces conducted a raid on a civilian settlement. They took hostages." "How many?" 47 confirmed, Admiral." Tors hesitated. 31 of them are children. The raid happened during a birthday party." The bridge went silent. Every officer stopped what they were doing. Admiral sat very still in her chair, her hands gripping the armrests. When she spoke, her voice was quiet and controlled, but there was something underneath it that made her crew feel afraid. "Show me." The main screen lit up with images from New Meridian. Security footage showed the attack in terrible detail. Alien soldiers dropping from the sky. Parents trying to fight back with whatever they could find. Children screaming and running. And then the worst part, the part that made Admiral's jaw tighten until her teeth hurt. The footage showed the aliens dragging children away while their parents reached for them, screaming their names. "Get me a line to Fleet Command," Admiral said. "Priority Alpha, and begin mobilization of the 7th Fleet. All ships, every single one." "Admiral, standard protocol for a hostage situation is to send a negotiation team first. If we mobilize the entire fleet, the Dominion might see it as an act of war and harm the hostages." Admiral turned to look at the officer who had spoken. He was new to her command, transferred in from a desk job somewhere safe. He had never seen real combat. He had never lost anyone he loved to enemy action. He did not understand. "Lieutenant," she said softly, "they took children. There is no negotiation, there is only getting them back. The Seventh Fleet mobilized in record time. 47 warships, ranging from small destroyers to heavy battlecruisers. Admiral had chosen that number on purpose, one ship for every hostage. She wanted the Dominion to understand exactly what they were facing. While her fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Admiral opened a direct channel to Dominion High Command. She knew her message would be recorded and analyzed by both sides, so she chose her words carefully. She wanted to be clear. She wanted to be understood. And most of all, she wanted to be terrifying. Far away, on the Eternal Conquest, General Han was still in his briefing with Intelligence Officer. The holographic display between them showed image after image of human violence, each one more disturbing than the last. "This is from the incident," said, pointing to a star map. "A human colony ship was attacked by slavers. There were 300 adults on board and 30 infants in the nursery section. The slavers demanded surrender. The humans refused." "What happened?" "The siege lasted 6 months, General. The humans ran out of food after 2 months. They began to starve. The slavers assumed they would surrender to save themselves." "And did they?" Slights pulsed a deep, bloody red. "No, General, they ate their dead. They consumed the bodies of their fallen companions to stay alive. They did this for 4 months, growing weaker every day, losing more of their people to hunger and sickness. But they never surrendered. They never gave up the children." Han felt his scales ripple with unease. "That is dedication." "That is madness, General, beautiful, terrible madness. When the human relief force finally arrived, they found that every single slaver had been killed. The humans had suffered 87% casualties. Out of 300 adults, only 39 were still alive. But every single infant was unharmed. Not one scratch, not one bruise." "How is that possible?" "Because humans will do anything to protect their young. Anything. They will break every rule of war. They will ignore every law of nature. They will become monsters if that is what is required. And right now, General, you have given them a reason to become monsters." The display changed to show a list of human military responses to threats against children. Each entry was worse than the last. A father who had killed 9 armed soldiers with nothing but a metal pipe. A mother who had crashed her own ship into an enemy vessel to save her daughter. An entire planetary uprising that began because an occupation force had reduced food rations at a school. "They have a phrase," continued, "Mama Bear. It refers to a Terran animal that is normally peaceful and avoids conflict. But when its young are threatened, it becomes one of the most dangerous creatures on their planet. It will fight anything, regardless of size or strength. It will die before it allows harm to come to its cubs." And the humans compare themselves to this animal. "No, General. The humans compare themselves to something far worse. They say the mama bear is cute compared to a human parent who has lost a child." Before Han could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the ship. His communications officer rushed onto the command deck, her face showing panic. "General, we are receiving a transmission from the Terran Alliance. It is being broadcast on all frequencies, unencrypted. They want everyone to hear this." "Put it through." The holographic display flickered, and suddenly Admiral Wei was standing before them. She was not young, but she was not old either. Her hair was gray at the temples, and her eyes were dark and steady. She wore her uniform like armor, and she spoke like someone who had already decided exactly what she was going to do. "This is Admiral Wei of the Terran Alliance," she said. "You have taken our children. I am not here to negotiate. I am not here to make threats. I am here to tell you what happens next." Her voice was calm, perfectly calm, and that made it so much worse. "You will return every child within 6 standard hours. They will be unharmed. They will be fed. They will not be frightened. For every tear on their faces, I will destroy a city. For every bruise, I will take a moon. and if a single hair on a single head has been harmed. She paused. Her eyes seemed to look directly at Han through the screen. General Han, I have been given permission to use the Orpheus Protocol. Your intelligence division knows what that means. I suggest you ask them. The transmission ended. Han turned slowly to, what is the Orpheus Protocol? His entire body went dark. No lights, no colors, just shadows and silence for a long moment before it spoke. It means they will follow us, General, everywhere, forever, not to conquer our worlds, not to take our resources, just to end us. Every ship destroyed, every station burned, every colony wiped clean. They will hunt us across the galaxy until there is nothing left that carries our name. It is not war, General. It is extinction, and they have used it before. Han sat down heavily in his command chair. His throat sacs had gone completely white, the color of surrender and fear. What have we done? He whispered. His light slowly returned, pulsing with the pale blue of despair. You have taken human children, General, and now the humans are coming to take them back. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like wolves appearing from the darkness of a forest. One moment there was nothing but empty space around the Dominion formation. The next moment there were 47 warships arranged in a perfect circle, their weapons already powered and ready to fire. General Han had never seen anything like it. Dominion military doctrine called for careful approaches, for positioning and strategy and the slow building of advantage. The humans had simply appeared, surrounding his fleet completely, and now they were waiting. Tactical analysis, Han ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. His weapons officer studied his console with shaking hands. General, they have us completely boxed in. If we try to run, they will cut us to pieces. If we try to fight, they will destroy us. Their formation is designed to ensure that no matter what we do, they win. How many ships did they bring? 47, General, exactly 47. Han understood the message. One ship for every hostage. The humans wanted him to know that each prisoner was worth an entire warship to them. It was a show of force, but it was also something more. It was a promise. Open a channel to the human flagship, Han said. I wish to speak with Admiral. The connection took only seconds to establish. Admiral appeared on the, sitting in her command chair with her hands folded calmly in her lap. She looked like someone waiting for an appointment, patient and unhurried. Behind her, Han could see her bridge crew moving with quiet efficiency. General Han, Admiral said, I was wondering when you would call. Admiral, I received your message. Good, then you understand the situation. Han chose his next words carefully. I understand that you have made threats against my people. I understand that you have surrounded my fleet with hostile vessels. What I do not understand is why you believe this display of force will accomplish anything. We have hostages. If you attack us, they will die. Admiral did not move. She did not blink. She simply looked at him with those dark, steady eyes. General, she said, let me tell you a story. When I was 7 years old, my younger brother was taken by criminals who wanted money from my parents. They held him for 3 days. Do you know what my mother did during those 3 days? I do not. She did not sleep. She did not eat. She did not cry or beg or negotiate. She spent those 3 days hunting the men who had taken her son. She found them on the 3rd day in a warehouse on the edge of the city. There were 4 of them, all armed. My mother was a teacher. She had never held a weapon in her life. Admiral leaned forward slightly. She killed all 4 of them with a kitchen knife she had brought from home. When the police arrived, they found her sitting with my brother in her arms, covered in blood that was not her own. She had been stabbed twice. She had not even noticed. Han felt his throat sacs tighten. That is what humans become when you take their children, General. My mother was a teacher, a small woman who grew flowers in her garden and baked cookies for the neighbors. And she became a killer in the span of 3 days because someone had touched her child. Admiral stood up from her chair and walked closer to the screen. "Now look at my fleet, General. Look at my ships. Look at my soldiers. These are not teachers and gardeners. These are warriors who have trained their entire lives to protect what matters to them. And right now, what matters to them is those 31 children in your cargo hold. You would risk war over this." "War?" Admiral laughed, but there was no humor in it. "General, you still do not understand. This is not about war. Wars have rules, wars have limits, wars have endings. What you have started has none of those things." She stopped laughing. "You have taken our children, and we will burn the entire galaxy to get them back. We will hunt your species for 1,000 years if we have to. Your great will grow up afraid to look at the stars because they will know that somewhere out there, humans are still coming. That is not a threat, General. That is a promise. That is who we are." Han tried to find something to say, some argument or threat or negotiation that might change the situation. But looking into Admiral's eyes, he realized there was nothing he could say. She was not angry. She was not afraid. She had simply made a decision, and nothing in the universe would change it. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "I have already told you. Return the children within 6 hours, every single one, unharmed and unafraid. Do this and we will leave. Fail to do this and the Orpheus Protocol begins." "And if I agree, what guarantee do I have that you will not attack us anyway?" "None," Admiral said simply. "You will have to trust that I am more interested in getting those children home to their parents than I am in revenge. But I will tell you this, General. My patience is not infinite. Every minute that passes makes the revenge option more attractive, so I suggest you make your decision quickly." She turned and walked back to her command chair. "You have 5 hours and 47 minutes remaining. I suggest you use them wisely." The screen went dark. Han sat in silence for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. They had all heard the conversation. They had all seen the look in the human admiral's eyes, and they were all afraid. "General," I said quietly, "what do we do?" Han did not answer immediately. He was thinking about his own children, back home on the Dominion. They were grown now, with families of their own, but he still remembered when they were small. He remembered how he had felt when they were sick or hurt or afraid. He remembered the primal urge to protect them, to keep them safe no matter the cost. And he realized, perhaps for the first time, that humans felt the same way. They were not so different after all. They loved their children just as fiercely, just as desperately. The only difference was that humans had built their entire civilization around that love, had turned it into something powerful and terrible and unstoppable. He had made a mistake, a terrible, terrible mistake. "Begin preparations to transfer the prisoners," Han said finally. "All of them, immediately." "General, if we return them, we lose all leverage. The humans will have no reason to negotiate with us." Han turned to look at her. "Commander, if we do not return them, we will not live long enough to negotiate anything. The humans are not bluffing. They will destroy us, not because they want to, not because they enjoy it, but because that is what humans do when you threaten their young." He stood up from his chair and walked to the viewport. Outside, the human ships hung in the darkness, their weapons still pointed at his fleet. They were waiting, patient and deadly and absolutely certain of what they would do if he made the wrong choice. "Prepare the transfer," Han repeated, "and pray to whatever gods you believe in that those children have not been harmed, because if they have—" He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Everyone on the bridge understood. The clock was still ticking. Deep in the lower decks of the Eternal Conquest, Guard Captain was having the worst day of his military career. He had served in the Dominion forces for 20 years. He had fought in battles against 7 different species. He had been shot, stabbed, burned, and once thrown out of a moving vehicle. None of those experiences had prepared him for this. He was in charge of guarding the human prisoners. When the children had first arrived, had expected them to be afraid. Small creatures, taken from their homes by terrifying aliens, locked in a cargo bay far from everything they knew. Any reasonable being would be paralyzed with fear. They would huddle in corners and cry and beg for mercy. The human children did none of these things. "I'm hungry," announced a small girl with yellow hair and a loud voice. She had told her name was Lily, and she was 6 years old, and she wanted to go home, but first she wanted something to eat because the paste they had given her was, in her words, super gross and yucky. "You have been provided with nutrient paste," said for the 10th time. "It contains all the necessary. It tastes like boogers." "How do you know what boogers taste like?" Lily gave him a look of pure disgust, as if he had asked the question in the history of the universe. "Everyone knows what boogers taste like. Duh." Did not know how to respond to this. He turned to check on the other prisoners and immediately wished he had not. A boy named, who claimed to be 10 years old and really smart about machines, had somehow found a maintenance tool and was taking apart one of the wall panels. Wires and circuits were spread across the floor around him, while he worked with intense concentration. "Stop that," commanded. "I almost got it," said without looking up. "I think if I connect these two wires, I can access the ship's communication system. Then I can call my mom." "You cannot call your mother. You are a prisoner." "Yeah, but I really want to talk to her. She's probably worried." "That is not my concern. Stop taking apart my ship." Ignored him completely and continued working. On the other side of the cargo bay, a group of older children had organized some kind of game. They were running in circles, chasing each other and screaming at the top of their lungs. The noise was incredible. Had been in artillery battles that were quieter than this. "Stop running," he shouted. The children ignored him. One of them, a girl with dark skin and braided hair, actually laughed at him as she ran past. "You're funny," she said. "Your face looks like a butt." "My face does not look like a..." "B-U-T-T-F-A-C-A, B-U-T-T-F-A-C-A, B-U-T-T-F-A-C-A." The children began to chant in unison. Closed his eyes and tried to find his calm center, the peaceful place inside himself where he went during moments of extreme stress. It was not working. The peaceful place had been invaded by screaming human children. The youngest prisoner was perhaps 4 years old. He was a tiny human male with curly brown hair and enormous eyes that seemed too big for his face. His name was Oliver, and he had attached himself to his leg the moment the guards had entered the cargo bay. He would not let go. Every time tried to shake him off, Oliver simply grabbed on and made a noise that sounded like a small animal being stepped on. "Release me," said. "No, I want him. Why, mommy? I am not your mother." "I know that. You're an alien. Aliens are different from MOMMIS. Then why are you holding onto my leg?" Oliver looked up at him with those huge eyes. His lower lip was trembling. "Because you're warm and I'm scared and I want someone to hold onto, and you're the only one who isn't running around." Felt something strange in his chest. It might have been pity. It might have been gas. He was not sure. Either way, he stopped trying to shake the small human off and simply stood there, letting the child cling to him while chaos erupted all around. His communicator buzzed. It was one of his subordinates, a soldier named who was guarding the other side of the cargo bay. "Captain, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The small ones need to use waste facilities. Frequently. Very frequently. I have taken 3 of them to the bathroom in the last hour, and 2 more are asking to go now." "Then take them." "Captain, they will not go unless I wait outside the door. And they talk the entire time. One of them asked me if I have a family. Another asked me why my skin is gray. A third asked me if I believe in something called..." "What is a..." "I do not know, Captain. But apparently he brings presents to good children and coal to bad ones. The child seemed very concerned about whether I had been good this year." rubbed his head with his free hand, the hand that was not occupied by the tiny human attached to his leg. Just manage the situation. I am trying, Captain, but they will not stop asking questions, and when I do not answer, they make up their own answers. One of them has decided that I am a robot from the future. Another thinks I am a very ugly human wearing a costume. A third believes I am a character from something called Minecraft. What is Minecraft? I do not know, and I am afraid to ask. The communication ended, looked around the cargo bay at the absolute disaster that had become of his guard duty. The walls were covered in nutrient paste because someone had declared a food fight, had successfully accessed something in the wall panel, and was now playing music through the ship's speakers, a strange human song about a shark and various family members. The running children had evolved their game into something more complex that seemed to involve throwing shoes at each other. And through it all, little Oliver remained attached to his leg, occasionally looking up to ask questions like, do aliens have pets? And what do you eat for breakfast? And do you ever feel lonely? That last question bothered more than he wanted to admit. His communicator buzzed again. This time it was General Han himself. Captain, I require a status report on the prisoners. Looked at the chaos. He looked at the nutrient paste on the walls. He looked at the wires hanging out of the wall panel. He looked at the shoes flying through the air. He looked down at Oliver, who had fallen asleep while still holding onto his leg. General, he said slowly, I recommend immediate return of the prisoners to human custody. On what grounds, Captain? Self-preservation, sir, not from the human fleet, from the prisoners themselves. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Explain. General, these are not prisoners. These are forces of nature. They do not fear us. They are not intimidated by us. They have spent the last several hours asking us questions, making demands, disassembling our equipment and referring to me as. If we do not return them soon, I believe my soldiers will surrender voluntarily just to escape. Surely trained Dominion soldiers can handle a few human children. As if in response to the general's words, the music changed, had found a new song. It was loud and repetitive and involved the same phrase being sung over and over again. The children immediately began singing along, adding their own voices to the noise. Let it go, let it go, can't hold it back anymore. General, said over the singing, I have been in combat for 20 years. I have faced death many times, but I have never experienced anything like this. These children are not afraid of us because they do not understand that they should be afraid. They think this is an adventure. They think we are interesting. One of them drew a picture of me and wrote "nice alien friend" underneath it. He paused. I do not wish to be their friend, General. I wish to give them back to their parents and never think about this day again. Please, for the sake of my sanity, return them. On the other end of the line, General Han was silent for a long moment. Then, very quietly, he said, begin transfer preparations immediately. Get those children off my ship. Felt a wave of relief so strong he almost collapsed. Thank you, General, thank you. He ended the communication and looked down at Oliver, still asleep against his leg. The small human's face was peaceful now, relaxed in the way that only sleeping children could be. He was holding a piece of uniform in one tiny fist, as if afraid the alien would disappear if he let go. Reached down and gently adjusted the child's position so he would be more comfortable. He did not know why he did it. It simply felt like the right thing to do. You are very small, he said quietly to the sleeping child, and very loud and very strange, but I think perhaps you are also very brave. Oliver did not respond. He just kept sleeping, dreaming whatever dreams human children dreamed, while the chaos continued around them. The exchange took place in the empty space between the two fleets, one shuttle from the Dominion, one shuttle from the Terran Alliance. Between them, nothing but stars and silence and the weight of everything that had almost happened. General Han had insisted on overseeing the transfer personally. His advisors had told him it was dangerous, that the humans might take him hostage in return, that he was risking everything by putting himself in their hands. He had ignored them all. He needed to see this. He needed to understand. The Dominion shuttle landed first, settling onto the small platform that had been set up for the exchange. Han stepped out with 2 guards and waited while the human shuttle approached and landed nearby. The hatch opened, and a line of Terran Marines emerged, their faces hard and their eyes alert. Behind them came Admiral Wei herself, wearing her formal uniform and walking with the confidence of someone who knew exactly how much power she held. "General Han," she said, stopping a few meters away, "thank you for making the wise choice." "I did not have much choice, Admiral. You made that very clear." "True, but you could have made us fight for them. You could have made this bloody and terrible. Instead, you are returning them peacefully. That counts for something." Han looked at the Admiral closely. She was not gloating. She was not celebrating. If anything, she looked tired, the kind of tired that came from hours of stress and fear and preparation for the worst. He realized that she had been just as afraid as he was, not of losing a battle, but of losing those children. "Bring them out," Han ordered. The door of the Dominion shuttle opened wider, and the human children began to emerge. They came in a line, guided by Dominion soldiers who looked relieved to be getting rid of them. Each child was scanned by human medical officers and then passed to a waiting Marine who checked them for injuries and asked quiet questions. Han watched the process with growing fascination. The human adults were completely focused on the children. They checked their eyes and their skin and their hands. They asked if they were hungry, if they were hurt, if anyone had scared them. They wrapped blankets around small shoulders and offered water and gentle words. It was not a military operation anymore. It was something else entirely. The children themselves seemed remarkably calm. Some were crying, but most were simply tired and confused and ready to go home. A few of them waved goodbye to the Dominion soldiers as they passed, which seemed to confuse both species equally. Then Han saw Guard Captain emerge from the shuttle, and he understood why the children were waving. Was carrying the smallest prisoner, the 4-year-old boy named Oliver, who had apparently refused to walk on his own. The child's arms were wrapped around the alien's neck, and his face was buried against his chest. When they reached the exchange point, tried to hand the boy to a human Marine, but Oliver would not let go. "Want," Oliver mumbled against uniform. "His name is not," the Marine said gently. "Come on, buddy, your mommy is waiting for you." "Mommy?" "Yes, she's on the big ship. She's been waiting for you all day." Oliver lifted his head and looked at with those enormous eyes. "You coming?" "No, small human. I must stay with my people." "Why?" "Because that is how things work. We are different species. We live in different places." Oliver thought about this for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small and crumpled. It was a drawing made with nutrient paste on a piece of cargo label. The picture showed a figure with gray skin and what might have been a smile. Underneath, in shaky child's handwriting, were the words MYFRENDBUTTFACE. "For you," Oliver said, pressing the drawing into his hand. "So you remember me." Stared at the drawing. His throat sacs changed color in a way that Han had never seen before. It was not fear or anger or pride. It was something softer, something that did not have a name in their language. "I will remember you, small human," said quietly. "Now go to your mother." Oliver finally let go and allowed the Marine to carry him away. He waved until he disappeared into the human shuttle, his small hand moving back and forth like a flag of friendship. The last child to leave was Lily, the 6-year-old girl with the loud voice and the strong opinions about nutrient paste. She stopped in front of General Han and looked up at him with no fear at all. "Are you the boss alien?" she asked. Han's translator worked on the question for a moment. "I am the general, yes." My mom says you're in big trouble. I believe she is correct. Lily nodded seriously. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out another drawing. This one showed a group of figures, some human and some alien, standing together under a yellow sun. At the bottom, she had written, "Peace is good." "I made this for you," she said. "My teacher says we should always try to make friends, even with people who are different from us. So maybe you could try being friends instead of taking people. It's better that way." Han took the drawing carefully, holding it like it was made of glass. "I will. Consider your advice." "Good." Lily smiled at him, a bright expression with no darkness in it at all. Then she ran to join the other children, and Han watched her go with something heavy in his chest. Admiral approached him as the last shuttle departed. The children were safe now, on their way back to their parents, and the crisis was over. But they both knew that this moment would stay with them forever. "General," Admiral said, "do you understand now? Do you understand what you almost started?" "I am beginning to, Admiral. I have learned things today that I will never forget." "Good." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a data chip. "This contains contact information for 31 human families. They have requested the opportunity to speak with you about the experience their children had today." Han took the chip with shaking hands. "They wish to speak with me. Why?" "Some of them want to scream at you. Some of them want to ask questions. A few of them, believe it or not, want to thank you." "Thank me for what?" "For keeping their children safe, for feeding them, for not hurting them when you could have, for letting them go." Admiral shrugged. "Humans are complicated, General. We can hate you and be grateful to you at the same time. It makes us confusing, but it also makes us capable of forgiveness." She turned to walk back to her shuttle, then stopped and looked over her shoulder. "I suggest you take those calls, General, because the parents who want to thank you might be able to convince the parents who want to kill you to calm down a little. And trust me when I say that you want them calm." She smiled, and this time there was something almost warm in it. "Goodbye, General Han. I hope we never meet like this again." She boarded her shuttle, and within minutes the human fleet began to withdraw. Ship by ship, they disappeared into hyperspace, heading back to New Meridian with their precious cargo of children and parents reunited at last. Han stood alone on the exchange platform for a long time after they were gone. He held the two drawings in his hands, one from Oliver and one from Lily, and he thought about everything that had happened. He thought about fear and love and the strange ways they could change a person. Then he walked back to his shuttle and returned to the Eternal Conquest. 3 months later, the Dominion signed a new treaty with the Terran Alliance. It included 17 provisions specifically about the treatment of human children. Han personally insisted on every single one. Guard Captain received an anonymous package containing something called chicken nuggets and a thank you note written in crayon. He kept the note on his desk for the rest of his career. General Han wrote a book about his experience. He called it The Smallest Enemies, What I Learned from Human Children. It became required reading at every Dominion military academy for the next 100 years. And somewhere in human space, a little girl named Lily showed her drawing to her class during show and tell. She told them about the aliens who had taken her and her friends, and about the big general who had looked so scary but had let them go. "And that's why you should never mess with humans," she concluded. "We're really annoying, and we make friends with everybody, even aliens, and that's kind of our superpower." Her classmates laughed. Her teacher smiled. And far away in the endless darkness of space, a Dominion general looked at a child's drawing and remembered the day he learned what humans were really made of. Not anger, not violence, not the cold machinery of war. Just love, fierce, impossible, unstoppable love. And that, in the end, was the most terrifying thing of all.